I never expected a frantic pounding at my door to change my life forever. Each rap echoed through the storm, like a desperate plea. My restless heart pounded in sync with the thunder. The storm had turned my little house into a cave of shadows, but nothing prepared me for the knock that shattered the fragile barrier between solitude and the unknown. Curtains whipped like claws, rain hammered the porch, and the windows rattled as though the storm itself wanted in. Wrapped in a blanket, I sat tense, haunted by memories of unpaid bills, hospital corridors, and loneliness too heavy for tea to cure. Lightning lit up the hallway, and with it came 6 sharp knocks. At first I thought it was imagination, but when the pounding returned, urgent and relentless, my breath caught. Who would be out here, in this merciless storm? Instinct urged me to stay hidden. But then another memory returned. A boy on a park bench, shivering, invisible to the world, waiting for kindness. My fear clashed with compassion until the knocking grew desperate, like salvation sought on the other side. Shaking, I slid from the sofa and padded barefoot to the door. The peephole, blurred with rain, revealed a tall figure, coat soaked through, hand pressed against the door, the other clutching his chest. Lightning illuminated his face for a heartbeat, eyes wide, desperate, pleading. My pulse thundered as I drew back. Logic screamed to keep the door locked, but my hands moved on their own. The deadbolt clicked. The door groaned open. A blast of wind roared past me as the figure stumbled in, collapsing on the mat, dripping and shaking. I grabbed his arm, guiding him into the living room. Water streamed from his clothes, his breaths labored. He avoided my eyes, shoulders trembling with something deeper than cold. I wrapped him in a blanket, fetched 2 mugs of hot tea, and placed one in his shaking hands. He clutched it like a lifeline. "My door's always open in a storm," I said, my voice barely steady. "What brings you here?" He glanced at the entrance as if expecting someone to follow. His voice was rough, strained. "I needed shelter. And I needed time." His words unsettled me. Time for what? His coat slumped across the armrest, and in its pocket bulged something folded. His fingers twitched toward it, hesitant, compelled. "I have a debt," he whispered, "a promise to repay." Lightning seared across the room, shadows leaping. He looked at me then, eyes fierce despite exhaustion. "Tomorrow," he said, voice trembling. "You'll understand why I came." I wanted to ask, but he shook his head. "Not now. Just rest." He slumped into the couch, cocooned in the blanket, breaths evening out. I moved to the window, staring at the storm tearing the world apart. My fragile little life suddenly felt like it was teetering on the edge of something vast and terrifying. Behind me, the stranger murmured in his sleep, a sound of relief, or regret, or a dream of something lost. My gaze returned to his coat, where the folded paper waited like a silent secret. Compassion had brought me this far, but caution held me frozen, listening to the storm's howl echo inside my bones. As he warms himself by the fire, I notice his fingers twitch toward the pocket where that mysterious paper hides. My pulse quickens. What could he be protecting so fiercely? Am I ready for the truth he'll unveil come dawn? Outside, the storm rages on, as if warning me that my life is about to be swept into an unimaginable tide of fate and fortune. The silence between us is louder than the storm outside. Every raindrop hitting the window sounded like a question I couldn't answer. His gaze stayed fixed on the swirling steam rising from his tea. I felt more alone than ever, even with a stranger curled up on my couch. The living room glowed faintly with firelight, the storm's growl pressing against the windows as if demanding entry. He sat cocooned in the blanket I had given him, his soaked hair plastered to his forehead, his frame trembling, not only from cold, but from something deeper. He cradled the chipped mug, steam curling into the shadows, while his eyes refused to meet mine. I eased onto the edge of the couch, the space between us thick with tension. His back was rigid, his shoulders tight, as though he expected intruders to break through the walls at any moment. Every second of silence felt like a test I wasn't prepared for. Finally, I asked softly, "Who are you?" His hand shifted, pressing against the paper I'd glimpsed earlier, hidden in his lap. His mouth twitched into a strained smile, but his eyes stayed hollow. "I'm nobody you need to know," he murmured. Then, after a pause, "But I'm here because of you." The word startled me. Because of me? He nodded once, eyes flicking toward the curtained window. The storm cracked overhead, lightning slicing the dark. I followed his gaze but saw only my own shadows stretching across the rug. His words sat heavy in the room. "You're welcome here," I offered gently. "But if you need more—" "No," he interrupted, voice rough. "This isn't about more. It's about repayment." His hand twitched again over the folded paper. His tone carried weight, desperation, and something dangerously close to guilt. I swallowed, curiosity pushing past fear. Why guard it so closely? He inhaled as though bracing for impact. Because it can't be lost. It can't be seen, his eyes found mine, desperate yet fierce. That flicker of honesty struck me like a chord I couldn't ignore. I reached out, laying a hand lightly on his shoulder. The blanket was damp beneath my palm, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he closed his eyes for a moment, as if drawing strength from the gesture. "Why did you come here tonight?" I whispered. When he opened his eyes, their darkness reflected the firelight. "Because I have nowhere else to go. And because I owe you a debt." My chest tightened. I thought of the tea, the blanket, the choice to open my door, but something about the way he said it told me this debt ran deeper. "You saved me once," he said at last. I blinked, confused. "Me?" He nodded, voice trembling. "Years ago. You gave me shelter when I had nothing. I never forgot. I've searched for you ever since." The memory rose like fog. A freezing park bench, a boy shivering in a coat too thin for winter, his hollow eyes widening when I pressed a sandwich into his hands. Could that fleeting kindness truly echo here, tonight? His hand shifted under the blanket, the edge of the paper peeking out. "I swore I'd repay you. But keeping that promise made me a target. If they take this, they'll come for you too." Fear chilled me more than the storm ever could. My gaze locked on the paper. "What is it?" He hesitated, torn, then drew it slowly into view. His hand hovered, knuckles trembling. "I can't carry it anymore. But I can't let them have it." His eyes locked on mine. "So I give it to you." My breath caught. The air in the room seemed to still. His voice shook, but his plea was clear. "Trust me. Protect this. Stand with me." I swallowed hard. "Then let me help you protect it." Relief swept across his face, softening the lines of exhaustion. He tilted the paper, revealing a silver crest embossed at the top. The symbol gleamed faintly in the firelight, unfamiliar yet heavy with power. The storm howled outside, rattling the windows. Inside, everything had changed. He finally leans forward and whispers, "What I'm about to show you will shatter everything you believe." My heart jolts. What secret could be so devastating? Is this paper a blessing or a curse masquerading as fortune? As he uncovers the first line, the lantern flickers, and the room plunges into darkness. A distant scream rips through the night, and I realize we are no longer alone. My life before tonight was nothing but routine and struggle. Each dawn broke on the same endless cycle of work and worry. I never imagined a single evening could upend everything I thought I knew. Before the storm arrived on my doorstep, my life was a loop of exhaustion and quiet despair. Every day began at 5 a.m. with the blare of an alarm clock I hated. By 6, I was scrubbing office hallways that smelled of bleach, pushing a mop across linoleum floors while the city was still asleep. The fluorescent lights flickered, buzzing like they mocked me, and every corridor reminded me I was invisible in a world that never cared whether I existed. When my morning shift ended, I'd hurry home to a kitchen buried in unpaid bills, rent notices, hospital invoices, late fees, all stacked like a cruel reminder of my failures. My mother's cough echoed in every corner of that tiny house. Her medical expenses were mountains I could never climb, no matter how many shifts I took. Each envelope I opened was a fresh wound, proof that no amount of hard work could heal what was broken. Evenings didn't bring relief. I returned to those same empty offices after sundown, mopping the silence until my back ached and my knees threatened to buckle. When I finally locked up for the night, I carried my tools across a dark parking lot, staring at the glittering skyline that felt galaxies away from my reality. I often stood there, staring upward, wondering if fate ever noticed people like me, or if it preferred to keep us small and forgotten. Storms had always unsettled me. Each rumble of thunder reminded me how fragile my world was. I remembered one winter night when a power outage left me trembling beneath blankets while the wind clawed at the windows. I cried quietly, not out of fear of lightning, but because I knew how easily everything I had could be swept away. My house was old, my job uncertain, my savings nearly gone. I lived one gust of wind away from ruin, and yet, despite everything, I found ways to give. I tucked sandwiches into napkins for the homeless man in the park, even when skipping that meal meant going hungry myself. I dropped coins into a busker's jar, though I barely had enough for bus fare. I offered smiles, small kindnesses, fragile acts of defiance against a world that wanted me crushed. One night stands out in memory. The boy on the park bench. It was bitter cold, the kind that gnawed at your bones. I saw him huddled under a hood far too thin, his teeth chattering, his eyes empty with hunger. Without thinking, I handed him my sandwich. He stared at me as though I had given him a kingdom. That single look branded itself into my memory. I walked away, embarrassed at how little I had to offer, never knowing that moment would echo back into my life. As years passed, I learned to survive, but never to live. I dreamed of escape, winning the lottery, stumbling into an inheritance, meeting someone who might lift me from the cycle of debt. But every morning I woke to the same peeling wallpaper, the same instant noodles for dinner, the same unpaid bills. Hope became a thin thread, frayed but unbroken. Then tonight came. The knock at midnight, the drenched stranger, the secret folded in his coat. When I opened that door, it felt like fate itself had arrived, disguised in rain and desperation. His hollow eyes, the trembling in his hands, the weight of something hidden. It was as if every storm I had endured had led me to this exact moment. I didn't yet know who he truly was, or what danger followed him. But as lightning split the sky and thunder shook the walls, I felt the strange certainty that kindness, my only weapon in a cruel world, was about to change everything. What I once thought meaningless, a sandwich given to a starving boy, was now unfolding into destiny. The storm wasn't just outside, it was here, inside my living room, reshaping my life before my eyes. I wonder if this single act of shelter could lead to salvation, or ruin. What secret does that folded paper hold, buried against his chest? Can my small kindness truly be the catalyst for a fortune, or a downfall? As the thunder shakes the walls, I brace myself for the moment he reveals his truth. His eyes hold secrets too heavy to bear. Every glance toward the window speaks of unseen hunters. The steam from his tea curls like unanswered questions. I realize I'm sitting across from a man at war with his own past. The rain pounded hard on the roof, but the silence between us was heavier. He gripped the chipped mug, knuckles pale against the ceramic, his eyes darting toward the curtains as though expecting someone to break through. I watched him, unsettled, as if he was both present and miles away, fighting an unseen battle. Finally, he pressed both hands flat against the table, the blanket slipping slightly from his shoulders. Beneath its folds, I caught the faint shift of the paper he guarded so closely. He didn't look at me. His gaze stayed on the wood grain. His voice was raw, trembling. "They're after me." My chest tightened. "Who are they?" "Powerful men," he whispered. "Influence beyond anything you can imagine. People who bury secrets under bodies." His jaw clenched, and his glance darted again to the storm-lashed window. "I can't tell you everything." "Not yet." I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "You can trust me. You're safe here." He gave a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "Safe? There's no safety left for me." He sipped his tea carefully, as though the warmth might keep him tethered to this fragile moment. Every second stretched, the weight of his silence pressing down. Finally, I asked, "Why did you flee?" This time, his eyes locked onto mine, haunted, burning. "Because I discovered something they can't let the world see." My breath caught. "What kind of something?" He dragged a hand across his face, hiding his eyes for a moment before lowering it again. His lashes glittered with tears. "Proof," he whispered. "Proof of crimes that could bring down nations. I was inside their circle once. I believed in their cause. Then I saw the cost. Innocents sacrificed, lives crushed, entire families destroyed." His voice cracked. I couldn't stay silent. The words sliced through me. This wasn't just a man hiding from debt collectors. This was someone who had walked into shadows and clawed his way out. "You did the right thing," I said, though my voice shook. His lips pressed thin. "Maybe. But now I'm hunted. And anyone who shelters me is hunted too." He looked directly at me. "That includes you." Fear surged through me, icy and real. My quiet life, the bills, the long hours, none of it had prepared me for this. And yet, here I was, bound to him by a storm and a secret I didn't yet understand. He reached beneath the blanket, his hand trembling, and pulled the folded paper into view. "This is everything," he said, softly. The document trembled in his grip. My own hand hovered, afraid to touch it. "Tell me what it says." He hesitated. "It names names. Politicians, CEOs, officers. It records their transactions, their bribes, their murders. If this is made public, their empire falls. But if they get it back, they'll kill anyone who's seen it." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating his face in stark relief. His words carried the chill of truth. "Why give it to me?" I whispered. His jaw tightened. "Because you're invisible. No one suspects a cleaning lady who opens her door in a storm, and because I can't carry it anymore. Not alone." His voice softened. "And because once, you gave me hope. That's why I trust you." Tears stung my eyes. "I never asked for this burden." He shook his head slowly. "None of us choose these moments. Fate chooses us." His hand brushed a strand of hair from my forehead, so tender it startled me. "Will you help me?" I stared at the paper between us. Its edges were worn, but the weight it carried felt infinite. Slowly, I reached out and closed my fingers around it. A jolt of resolve coursed through me. His shoulders slumped, relief flickering in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. His voice cracked with both gratitude and fear. "Now you deserve to know everything." He began to speak, unraveling the fragments of his past. He told me about his recruitment, how a mentor lured him in with promises of power, how he sat in gleaming boardrooms where corruption was masked by polished smiles, how coded words carried the weight of blood. He had believed he could change them from the inside, until he realized he was only a pawn in their empire. His voice broke when he described the final straw. Innocent families silenced, entire villages crushed beneath greed. That was when he had stolen the documents, a desperate act of rebellion that painted a target on his back. "And tonight," he said, staring into the fire, "they almost caught me. If I hadn't reached your door." His words trailed off, leaving the rest unsaid. I sat frozen, listening to the storm hammering against the glass. Every detail of his story stitched a new thread into my life, binding me tighter to his fate. When he finally stopped, he looked at me with an expression that was both apology and plea. "Now it's in your hands." I pressed the document to my chest, feeling its weight like a heartbeat. "Then we'll face it together," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. Lightning ripped across the sky, and in its glow I saw him clearly. Not just a hunted man, but someone who had chosen to trust me above all others. He stares at me and murmurs, "Open it, and you'll understand why you'll never be the same." My heart hammers. What horrors lie folded in these pages? Can I bear the weight of exposing a conspiracy that could upend nations? As I lift the corner of the document, a deafening crack of thunder seems to answer me. The lamplight flickers, and reality fractures in the storm's wake. I trace the crisp folds of an envelope that promises the impossible. My fingertips tremble as I slide beneath the wax seal, heart pounding in my ears. Every instinct screams that this could be too good to be true. Yet something deep inside urges me onward. Curiosity, hope, or perhaps desperation. The envelope sat between us like a live wire, its wax seal glistening faintly in the firelight. My hands shook as I slid a finger beneath the fold, feeling the faint crackle of paper that seemed to pulse with secrets. The stranger watched me closely, his jaw tense, his breath shallow. Outside, the storm pounded harder, as if nature itself demanded I uncover the truth. The wax broke with a sharp snap. Slowly, carefully, I pulled the folded document free. It was heavier than I expected, thick cardstock with an embossed silver crest that caught the dim light. My eyes traced the lettering, my lips whispering the words. Share certificate. My stomach dropped. I unfolded it fully, my vision blurring as rows of text and numbers revealed themselves. Then I saw it. My own name printed in elegant script beside a staggering number. 5 million common shares. I blinked, stunned, and scanned the fine print. The issuing company's name leapt out at me, faintly familiar from a news headline I'd once skimmed. Official seals gleamed along the margins, signatures etched in deliberate strokes. This wasn't a forgery. It was real. My name was there, undeniable, tied to a fortune I had never imagined. The words caught in my throat. How? He leaned forward, his eyes glassy with relief. "It's yours," he said softly. "You're a multimillionaire." Overnight. The words spun in my head. I glanced again at the certificate, half expecting the ink to smear or fade. But no. It was solid, unrelenting. I folded it once, then again, as if I could push the truth back into its envelope. But the storm had already let it out. "Why me?" My voice cracked. "I'm just a woman who cleans floors for a living." His gaze burned into me. "Because once, when I was nothing, you saved me. You gave me food when no one else would. That kindness became my compass. Tonight, I honor my promise." I closed my eyes, the memory surfacing, of the boy shivering on a bench, clutching a sandwich as though it were salvation. I had walked away, thinking it was nothing. But for him, it was everything. Tears pricked my eyes. "I don't remember all of it." "You don't need to," he said gently. "I never forgot." I shook my head, overwhelmed. "Is this even legal?" "Yes," he said firmly. "Everything is filed through trusted channels. You own those shares. Dividends, rights, all of it. You can cash it, invest it, change lives with it." He gestured to the document. "It's not a gift. It's repayment." I stared at the crest, silver threads reflecting distorted fragments of my face. My reflection trembled, as if I were looking at a stranger. This couldn't be real, yet it was. My voice was hoarse. "What about you? What do you have left?" He exhaled, shrugging. "Less than you think. But I'm alive, and that's what matters." His eyes shifted to the window, as though expecting shadows to appear any moment. I folded the certificate, pressing the paper against my palm like it might disappear. What do I do with this? Anything you choose, he said simply. Pay debts. Heal your mother. Build something greater. But above all, keep it hidden. They will come for it. They already know I transferred it. Fear gnawed at me. I pictured strangers rifling through my home, tearing apart my life to find this one fragile piece of paper. But then, another thought surfaced. My mother's cough, the stacks of unpaid bills, the helplessness I had lived with for years. With this, I could finally breathe. My mother, I whispered. This could save her. His expression softened. Then let it. I gripped the certificate, feeling determination burn through the fog of fear. For the first time in years, I held a weapon against the world's cruelty. Not a mop, not a stack of coins, but something that could change everything. But before I could say another word, his phone buzzed on the table. The sound was sharp, electric, cutting through the storm. He snatched it up, eyes scanning the screen, his face drained of color. They've found me, he whispered. My stomach clenched. Who? Them, he said, voice trembling. The ones who'll stop at nothing. They know where I am, which means they know where you are. Fear twisted my insides. My fingers clutched the certificate tighter, as if holding it might shield me. What do we do? He shot to his feet, urgency pouring off him. We move. Now he snatched the certificate, tucking it inside an inner pocket close to his chest. His coat still dripped with storm water, but his movements were precise, purposeful. He grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the door. If we stay, they'll take everything. The tea mugs, the blanket, the fragile safety of my small living room, all of it blurred as we stumbled into the hallway. Outside, thunder roared, lightning split the sky, and the world waited with bated breath. Before I can ask for proof, his phone buzzes. He pales and whispers, "It's them. They've found me." My pulse races. Will they reach us before we escape? Is the fortune I hold worth risking everything? Lightning splits the sky as I grasp his arm, resolve solidifying into action. Tonight, our lives become a chase through darkness with millions on the line. I once fed a hungry boy. I never dreamed he'd repay me like this. That frigid night in the park felt insignificant at the time. Tonight, its ripple crashes through my life like a tidal wave. We stumbled into a narrow alley, the rain slapping down in sheets, every drop stinging against my face. My heart raced, lungs burning, yet I held on to his hand like it was the only rope keeping me tethered to life. The world blurred around me. Wet bricks, rattling gutters, the hum of danger behind us. He finally stopped beneath a fire escape, pulling me close to the wall as though to shield me from the storm. His coat clung to his tall frame, drenched, but his eyes burned with a strange light, haunted, yet resolute. From his pocket, he pulled out a small leather wallet, worn and water-stained. He flipped it open, hands trembling, and slipped something into my palm. I looked down, confused, and gasped when I saw it. A faded photograph, its edges curled with time and dampness. The image showed me, years younger, kneeling beside a park bench in the dead of winter. My hand stretched out, offering a sandwich wrapped in paper. Across from me sat a boy, his face streaked with dirt, eyes hollow with hunger, hands too small and frail. I remembered the night instantly, the bite of frost in the air, the way my hands had shaken, not just from the cold, but from nerves. I had offered what little I had, then walked away, never expecting it to matter. He looked at me now, rain dripping down his jawline, his voice thick. That boy was me. My throat closed. You. He nodded, his lips trembling with the weight of memory. I was starving. I was invisible. But you saw me. You gave me hope when the world had abandoned me. His voice cracked. I swore, that night, that I'd find a way to repay you. Tears blurred my vision. That one act of kindness, an impulsive sandwich, had been carried in his heart like a lifeline. I had forgotten, but he had not. I promised myself, he continued, stepping closer, that if I ever rose above the hunger, if I ever had power, I'd repay the woman who saved me. His eyes glistened. Everything I've built, everything I've risked, it led me back to you. I shook my head, overwhelmed. But I didn't do anything extraordinary. You did, he said fiercely. Most people walk past suffering. You stopped. You gave when you had nothing to give. That moment changed me. He pressed his hand against the pocket where the certificate lay hidden. And now, I'm changing your life in return. The alley seemed to shrink, the storm muffling into a dull roar as his words sank in. I felt both small and infinite, haunted by the memory of that shivering boy, awed by the man he had become. My world, once defined by bills and empty cupboards, now bent under the weight of gratitude, returned tenfold. But even as my heart swelled, fear clawed back in. You risked everything for this? I asked, my voice shaking. Yes, he said simply, because kindness is the only debt worth carrying. He stepped closer, brushing wet strands of hair from my face. His hand lingered, gentle but trembling. But no, this. Your kindness has painted a target on you. They'll come for you now, because of me. The words struck like ice. I pictured the faceless hunters he had spoken of, powerful men who buried secrets with corpses. My small act of compassion, once harmless, had tied me to their rage. Why tonight? I whispered. His expression tightened. Because I ran out of time. They're closing in. I couldn't let them take it before I fulfilled my promise. I had to find you. I pressed the photo to my chest, my pulse thundering. That night on the bench had been nothing to me, one small choice in a sea of hardship. But to him it had become a compass, guiding him through hunger, ambition, and danger, back to my doorstep. You saved me when I was a child, he said, voice raw. Now I'm saving you. That's the debt of kindness. For a long moment, we stood in silence, rain cascading around us, the storm lighting the sky in fractured bursts of silver. Then I whispered the words that had taken root inside me. We'll face it together. His breath hitched, relief and determination flickering in his eyes. Then we'll survive this. Lightning split the sky, illuminating his silhouette against the dripping brick wall. For a heartbeat, he looked almost regal, no longer the hunted boy, but a man repaying destiny itself. Suddenly, he freezes and warns, "They know where you live." My heart constricts. Have the hunters closed in on our trail? Is our pact strong enough to weather the coming onslaught? As his eyes dart toward the alley's entrance, a shadow emerges from the rain. Tonight, the debt of kindness becomes a crossroads between salvation and doom. Headlights cut through the rain. Someone's outside, watching. Each beam slides across the curtains like a blade. My breath catches as fear coils in my chest. I realize the storm isn't my only danger tonight. The storm had quieted into a steady downpour, but my nerves hummed louder than the thunder. I thought for one fragile heartbeat that we might have outrun the danger. Then I saw it. Twin beams of light cutting across the room, slicing through the curtains. I crept toward the window, my body rigid with dread. Outside, beyond the dripping iron gate, a black SUV sat idling, its headlights glaring into my small home like unblinking eyes. The engine rumbled low, a predator purring in the dark. Two silhouettes sat in the front seats, motionless, watching. Rain streamed down the glass, blurring their features, but I felt their intent. They hadn't come seeking shelter. They had come to hunt. My pulse drummed in my ears. I pressed myself against the wall, clutching the blanket tighter around me. But it wasn't warmth I sought. It was courage. Beside me, he stiffened, his jaw tightening as he glanced toward the window. His hand hovered near his coat pocket where the certificate lay hidden. "They found us," he whispered, voice taut. "Already?" The words sank, like lead in my stomach. I thought of the envelope wedged behind the heating vent, of the storm that had delivered him to my door, of the photograph he had shown me in the alley. Fate had tangled us together, but now it felt like a noose tightening. "What do we do?" I asked, my throat dry. His eyes darted around the room, searching for escape. Then he turned back to me. "Hide it." Now my hand shook as I slid the paper deeper into the vent, shoving aside old cardboard boxes. The metal slats groaned, the sound sharp in the silence. I prayed the hunters wouldn't hear. The SUV's engine cut off. Silence pressed heavy against the windows. Then came the crunch of boots on gravel. I froze. Every muscle tensed. The front porch groaned under weight. A pause, and then the faint click of my lock. My breath caught in my throat. The door creaked open, letting in a blade of yellow light. A tall figure stepped inside, rain dripping from his coat. He paused, listening. His gloved hand slipped into his pocket and drew out a small device that glowed faintly. A pen light. He swept it across the living room, illuminating the couch where he had slept, the mugs of cold tea still on the table, the scattered blanket. My heart hammered so loud I was sure they could hear it. The stranger touched my arm, lightly, grounding me. His eyes met mine. Fierce, protective, unspoken words burning there. "Stay behind me." He stepped into the living room, shoulders squared, hands raised in a gesture that blended defiance with surrender. The intruder's voice filled the room, low, cold, measured. "We know you have something that belongs to us. Hand it over, and no one gets hurt." The stranger's voice answered, calm but tense. "You're mistaken. I'm a guest here. She has nothing you want." The man chuckled softly, but it was a sound without humor. "We know exactly what she has. And we know where it's hidden." My chest tightened. How could they know? Had I been followed, watched, marked without realizing it? The intruder moved further in, sweeping the light across shelves, rifling behind furniture as if peeling back the layers of my life. His touch defiled the small sanctuary I had built, leaving it sullied with menace. From the doorway, another shadow entered. The second man, taller, his presence doubling the threat. The odds stacked against us, sharp and undeniable. The stranger edged closer, his body a shield between me and them. His voice hardened. "Leave her out of this." The leader tilted his head, amused. Bravery. Admirable. But misplaced. One last chance. Handed over, I stepped forward before I could stop myself. My voice quivered, but it carried. "There's nothing here for you." The taller man's gaze swept over me. Predatory. He reached for my jacket, his hand brushing the fabric near my ribs. I recoiled, but the stranger lunged, shoving him hard into the wall. A mug shattered on the floor, the sound slicing through the air, like thunder. The room erupted into chaos, shouts, scuffling, the storm's fury echoing through broken rhythms. The stranger pinned one man against the wall, his jaw set, his grip unyielding. "Tell them to leave," he hissed. The man spat, his voice dripping with venom. "This isn't over." He shoved back, staggering toward the door. His partner followed, both retreating into the night as quickly as they had come. The SUV's headlights flared once, then cut off, swallowed by rain and darkness. Silence fell again, but it was heavier now, tainted by the certainty that this wasn't finished. I sank to the floor, shaking, adrenaline coursing through me. My small home, once a refuge, now felt like a battlefield. The stranger exhaled, his chest heaving. "They'll return," he warned grimly. "And next time, they won't come alone." I pressed a trembling hand to his arm. "What do we do?" His eyes hardened with resolve. "We move the certificate, tonight. It's not safe here anymore." I nodded, my fear colliding with determination. My life had been ripped open, my safety stolen, but something inside me had shifted too. I wasn't just a bystander anymore. I was part of the fight. A shadow appears in the doorway. I grip the paper and hold my breath. Is it friend or foe emerging from the rain? Will we outsmart the hunters this time, or fall into their trap? Thunder booms as the door creaks open. Our fate hangs on the next breath. In that frozen moment, I realize there is no turning back. Trusting him could save me, or destroy me. My heart pounds as their demand slices through the room. Every instinct screams that this choice will define my fate. The intruder's voice rang like a blade through the fragile silence of my living room. Hand over the certificate. Now his words sliced the air sharper than the storm outside. I stood frozen, my back pressed to the wall, the envelope hidden deep within the heating vent. The stranger stood between us, his coat dripping, his hands raised not in surrender, but in quiet defiance. The storm had delivered him to me, but the danger at my door had arrived with equal ferocity. The leader's eyes gleamed in the faint light. "You know the rules," he said, nodding toward the stranger. "You don't keep what doesn't belong to you. And she," his finger stabbed the air at me, "doesn't get to decide her fate tonight." The stranger's stance stiffened. "She means more to me than you understand," he said, voice taut but steady. "If you harm her, you answer to me." The taller intruder smirked, unimpressed. "Big words for a hunted man. You're outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched." His voice softened into something venomous. "Give us the document, and she lives. Refuse, and she dies first." Fear lanced through me, but beneath it burned something fiercer. I thought of the boy on the bench, of the photo he had shown me in the alley, of the promise he had made, across the years. He had carried my small kindness like a treasure. Could I betray him now, when he was the one trembling under the weight of his own vow? The stranger's eyes darted to mine, pleading silently. "Trust me." I swallowed hard. My hands trembled at my sides, but I forced my chin upward. "You won't get it," I whispered, voice shaking but resolute. "It's mine now." The leader's lips twisted into a slow smile. "So be it." He flicked his hand. The second man stepped forward, the metallic glint of a pistol catching the lightning outside. In an instant, the stranger pulled me behind the couch, his arm a steel band around my waist. "Stay behind me," he hissed. His voice carried no doubt, only command. The taller man advanced, gun steady, his shadow stretching long across the wall. The leader's eyes narrowed, studying us as though we were animals cornered in a cage. "You can't win," he said softly. "You've already lost." Thunder exploded above us, rattling the walls. Lightning poured through the windows, illuminating the tableau in stark relief. Me crouched behind the couch, the stranger standing like a sentinel, the intruders poised like executioners. My pulse hammered in my ears. Every instinct screamed to surrender, to end this before blood stained the floor. But another voice, quieter yet stronger, whispered of loyalty, of trust, of the debt of kindness that bound us together. I remembered the boy's fragile hands clasping a sandwich as though it were salvation. I remembered the stranger's voice in the alley. Kindness is the only debt worth carrying. And I realized I could not abandon him now. I peeked around the couch, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at me. "You'll never get it without a fight." The taller man hesitated, his gun wavering just slightly. The leader's expression darkened. He stepped closer, his voice dropping into a hiss. "Then you'll come with us." The stranger stiffened, his body bracing against mine. "I won't let you take her," he declared, his voice ringing through the storm. The leader sneered. "We'll see about that." The taller intruder lunged forward, hand reaching for my arm. The stranger shoved me back, intercepting him with a force that sent both crashing against the coffee table. A lamp toppled, glass shattering across the floor. Shadows danced wildly on the walls as the storm outside howled louder, echoing the chaos inside. I crouched low, heart hammering, every breath tasting of dust and fear. I wanted to scream, to run, to hide, but instead I clenched my fists. I had chosen my side. The stranger wrestled the intruder, both locked in a brutal struggle. The leader watched, his smile fading into cold calculation. "You'll both regret this," he muttered. I surged forward, snatching the broken lamp base from the floor. My hand shook, but I raised it high. When the taller intruder lunged toward me again, I swung with all the strength I had left. The blow landed with a crack, sending him staggering back with a snarl. The stranger's eyes flicked to me, pride and urgency flashing across his face. "Run," he barked, but I didn't. I stood my ground, chest heaving, the broken lamp clutched tight. For once, I wasn't just a witness to the storm. I was part of it. The intruder's reply makes my blood run cold. "Then you're both coming with us." I feel his grasp tighten as he hauls us toward the door. The stranger's whispered promise echoes in my ear. "Stay with me." Lightning illuminates the hallway, our only exit stalked by shadows. With hearts pounding, we brace for a journey into the storm's eye. We fled into the storm, every step a gamble with death. Rain lashed our faces as thunder cracked above us. Adrenaline and fear propelled us forward, no turning back. Each breath tasted of salt water and resolve. The night exploded around us the moment we broke free of the house. Rain hammered down in relentless torrents, soaking us to the skin within seconds. My bare feet slapped against puddled cobblestones, water rising past my ankles. Beside me, he pulled me forward with unyielding strength, his hand gripping mine like a lifeline. Lightning split the sky, and in that white-hot flash I saw it. The black SUV at the corner of the street, its taillights glowing like watchful eyes. My breath caught. They were circling, hunting. He yanked me down a narrow side alley, shoving aside a toppled trash bin. "Stay close," he barked, voice taut with urgency. "Don't let go." I clung to him, my lungs burning. The storm swallowed every sound, except the pounding of boots and the distant roar of engines. We splashed through ankle-deep water, weaving through alleys where garbage floated like ghostly wreckage. Every shadow looked like a hunter, every thunderclap like a gunshot waiting to be fired. By the time we reached the first intersection, I was trembling from cold and fear. He stopped beneath a rusted fire escape, pressing his forehead against the wall as though listening. His chest heaved, steam rising in bursts from his breath. "They'll cover the main roads," he said, voice low but clear. "We take the back routes. The city's veins no one maps." I nodded, my teeth chattering. "How much farther?" 2 blocks, he said, pointing toward a narrow service lane, half lit by a flickering street lamp. "Safe house." "Just hold on." We pressed forward, ducking under dripping awnings, skirting along brick facades. My coat clung to me like a second skin, every droplet burning as it slid down my spine. My fingers ached from clutching the folder hidden inside, the certificate's weight pressing into me like a secret too heavy to carry. At one corner, a shadow moved. I froze. A man's silhouette darted across a doorway, vanishing before I could scream. My pulse spiked. He pushed me into a stack of wooden pallets, crouching low. His finger pressed to his lips. I held my breath. Moments later, 2 figures emerged from the darkness, scanning the street with flashlights. Their voices were muffled by the rain. They couldn't have gone far. "Check the north side." "She has it. He won't leave without her." My stomach knotted. They were right. He wouldn't leave me, and I couldn't abandon him. We waited until their footsteps faded. Then he pulled me up, whispering, "Move." We crept through a labyrinth of alleys until we reached a deserted loading dock. Water pooled across the planks, the storm swelling high enough to make the wood groan beneath us. The warehouse beyond loomed dark and cavernous, a broken door hanging ajar, like a mouth waiting to swallow us whole. He led me inside, the sudden silence pressing heavy against my ears. The storm's roar dulled, replaced by the hollow echo of our footsteps. The warehouse smelled of rust and damp cardboard. "This way," he whispered, guiding me toward a stairwell that led underground. The wooden steps creaked beneath our weight. At the bottom, a narrow cellar opened into shadow. He dragged crates across the entrance, barricading us in. My breath rattled in my chest as I pulled the certificate from my coat. The plastic sleeve was warped by rain, but the paper inside remained crisp, defiant. I ran my fingers over the embossed crest, whispering, "We can't keep running forever." His gaze softened. "No. But tonight, survival comes first." He lowered himself beside me, his hand brushing mine. "We'll find a way to turn this storm in our favor." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe the storm had purpose, that kindness, once given, could still carve a path through ruin. But the sound above shattered my fragile hope. Boots, heavy, determined. The wood splintered. Crates groaned under pressure. He pressed me back against the wall, his eyes burning with urgency. "They've found us." The words echoed in the damp cellar, heavy as thunder. My chest tightened. We had run, fought, hidden, but fate had caught us again. As we pause in an abandoned warehouse, I hear them closing in. My heart races. Are these the intruders, or something else entirely? The barrels press against my back. The stranger's breath fans my ear. Each step above thunders like a death knell in my skull. We hold our breath, waiting for the moment the enemy emerges from the dark. Walls soaked by rain echoed with approaching footsteps. Each drop of water trembled through the steel beams above us. Our breaths came in ragged whispers, hearts hammering in unison. In the thunder's wake, danger closed in like a living thing. The warehouse felt like a tomb. Every sound was amplified. The drip of water through broken skylights, the groan of rusted metal, the scuttle of rats disturbed by our intrusion. We crouched behind crates stacked high, the scent of damp wood and oil thick in the air. My skin prickled with terror, my clothes clinging wet and heavy against my frame. Beside me, he pressed one hand against the floor, his body taut like a bowstring. He leaned close, whispering, "They're here." Above us, boots crunched against the concrete floor. Flashlights swept the rafters in jittering beams, cutting across puddles that glistened like shards of glass. Voices echoed in low tones, commanding and sharp. "Check every corner." They're close. I held my breath, pressing my palms against the cold crate. The hunters' movements grew louder, spreading through the warehouse like a net tightening around us. There were too many, more than I'd ever imagined. He turned to me, his jaw set, his eyes steady despite the chaos. "You have to decide," he whispered. "Run, or fight." The words pierced me like ice. The side door wasn't far, a narrow gap we might slip through if luck favored us. But the certificate weighed against my chest, its promise of freedom and danger intertwined. To run meant leaving it behind, abandoning the very reason he had come to me. To fight meant risking our lives against armed men in a fortress of shadows. I clenched my fists. My heart screamed for escape, but my soul whispered loyalty. "We fight," I whispered back. His gaze flickered with something like pride. He squeezed my hand briefly, then shifted forward, preparing. The leader's voice boomed through the cavern. "Come out. No need to die tonight. Hand over the document, and you walk away." I pressed myself tighter against the crates, fear burning in my chest. He shook his head, whispering, "They'll kill us either way." "Don't believe them." Before I could answer, a sudden crash split the silence. From the rafters above, a figure dropped, landing on the concrete with a thud. Dust swirled in the flashlight's beams. Hunters turned, guns raised, voices barking in alarm. I gasped, clutching his arm. Another enemy? Another trap? The man straightened, his coat heavy with rain, his face half-shadowed. "Don't shoot!" he shouted, raising his hands. "You need me alive." The hunters hesitated, weapons trained but unmoving. The leader narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" The newcomer's voice cracked with urgency. "The one who moved the shares." I know where the girl hid the certificate. My blood ran cold. Betrayal, sharp and merciless, pierced me deeper than any blade. Had he followed us here only to deliver us into their hands? But then his voice softened, steady and strange. If you want it, you'll need me. The exits are rigged. You'll all die without me. Murmurs rippled among the hunters. Some lowered their guns, uncertain. The leader studied him for a long, tense moment before jerking his chin. Talk. The man stepped closer, slowly, carefully. His flashlight swung wildly, landing on me for the briefest second. His eyes met mine. Haunted. Weary. Not betrayal. Something else. He lowered his voice so only we could hear. I don't want them to have it. I'll help you escape. The stranger at my side bristled, gun half raised. His voice was ice. Why should we trust you? The man held his ground, desperation etched into every line of his face. Because I tried to stop this from happening. Too many died already. I won't let them take her. Lightning illuminated his face through the skylight. Tired eyes, a scar at his temple, sincerity bleeding through his exhaustion. For a heartbeat, silence swallowed the warehouse. Finally, the stranger lowered his weapon, though suspicion still burned in his gaze. Then lead us out, he said. The man nodded, motioning toward a narrow corridor at the far end of the warehouse, half hidden behind crates. That way. Hurry. They'll close in any second. I gripped the certificate tighter against my chest, my breath quickening. The hunters exchanged glances, some wary, some hungry for blood. The leader sneered, his flashlight flickering across us. Run all you like, he said coldly. We'll find you. The stranger pulled me toward the corridor. My feet splashed through puddles, each step echoing through the cavernous space. Behind us, voices rose, weapons clattered. The hunters were following. The man led us into the dark passage, his flashlight guiding us through rusted beams and broken concrete. My chest burned with fear, my heart pounding with every turn. We moved deeper, shadows thickening, footsteps echoing behind us. The storm outside howled, rattling the warehouse like a beast clawing at its cage. I clutched the paper, whispering to myself, "Hold on. Just hold on." Just then, a silhouette drops from the rafters. One of his enemies is inside. The hunter's flashlights converge on our escape route. I clutch the certificate, breath catching as the stranger whispers, "Stay close." Lightning flashes through a broken window, revealing dozens of armed figures blocking our path. Our fate hinges on the next step. Will trust lead us to freedom, or deeper into the storm's web? In those tense seconds, I saw a lifetime of regret in his gaze. His eyes flickered with sorrow and determination as he held me in place. Every thunderclap outside seemed to echo the hammer of my pounding heart. I realized then that nothing about this night was by chance. The warehouse stank of rust, rain, and betrayal. Flashlights carved frantic arcs across the dark as hunters scrambled, shouting commands to block the exits. We crouched in the shadow of crates, breathless, soaked, and cornered. My fingers tightened around the share certificate pressed beneath my coat. Its paper edges dug into my skin, a reminder of the fortune and danger that tied me to him. He turned to me, rain dripping from his hair, his face taut with exhaustion, and something else. Remorse. For a fleeting second, his eyes softened, and I saw not a fugitive nor a magnate, but a boy again, shivering on a park bench. My heart clenched. Then he spoke, voice low and rough words barely audible above the storm. You need to know the truth. All of this, the storm, the chase, the hunters, it didn't just happen. I made it happen. The world tilted beneath me. What are you saying? I whispered, my throat tight. He looked away, shame darkening his features. I orchestrated it. Every test, every pursuit. I needed to see if you could endure it, if you were strong enough to carry what I'm giving you. My breath caught. Anger and disbelief surged through me. You used me? You risked my life? For a test? His jaw tightened, guilt plain in his eyes. Not used. Trusted. I had to know if you were worthy of this burden. I've been betrayed too many times. By allies. By men I once called brothers. If I hand over my legacy, my entire empire, it has to be to someone who won't falter. I staggered back against the crate, heart pounding with betrayal. The rain pounding overhead seemed to mock me, each drop a hammer driving his confession deeper. You questioned my worth? He shook his head fiercely, kneeling before me, his hand trembling as it reached toward mine. Not your worth. My hope. I needed to believe someone still exists who would choose loyalty over fear. You proved that tonight. Again and again I wanted to turn away, but his eyes caught me. And in them I didn't just see regret. I saw truth. A lifetime of scars carved into a man who had clawed his way from hunger to power. A man desperate to believe that kindness could survive in a world built on cruelty. He pulled something from his coat, the share certificate, its silver crest dulled by rain. He pressed it into my hands, his voice breaking. It's yours. All of it. Not because you saved me once, but because you've stood by me when every instinct told you to run. I stared at the paper, its weight more crushing than freeing. And if I'd failed your test? If I'd given in? His lips curved in a sorrowful smile. Then I would have died with the knowledge that no one was left worth trusting. The admission pierced me. I closed my fingers around the document, rain-slick paper trembling against my skin. My heart screamed to reject it, to hurl it back into his chest. But another part of me, deeper and steadier, knew this was more than money. It was the culmination of every choice, every act of compassion, every refusal to surrender. I met his gaze, my voice steady. I chose to stay. I chose to fight. Relief softened his features, and for the first time since the knock on my door, he smiled, fragile, hopeful, human. Then it's yours. A thunderous crack above us snapped us both back to the present. The hunters were closing in, their voices echoing down the corridor. We didn't have long. He rose swiftly, pulling me to my feet. Come on, he urged, his hand gripping mine. We still have to survive the night. We ran together through the dripping corridor, my heart hammering with equal parts fury and resolve. Betrayal and trust mingled inside me like oil and flame, but one truth remained. We were bound, by storm and by choice, to face whatever came next. The warehouse doors loomed ahead, rain slashing through broken windows. Behind us, boots thundered, shouts rising, weapons clicking into place. He pulled me closer, shielding me with his body. Hold on, he whispered. We'll make it. And despite everything, despite the lies, the fear, the storm, I believed him. The warehouse doors crash open as gunfire erupts. Our only escape rattles under the hail of bullets. The stranger grips the wheel, voice low. Hold on. Lightning reveals a bridge washed away ahead. Our path has vanished. In that fleeting flash, I realize freedom may lie beyond treacherous waters. At first light, I stepped out of the storm and into my unknown future. The world felt both familiar and brand new under the soft glow of dawn. Every breath tasted like possibility and the promise of change. The storm that had consumed the night finally loosened its grip. By dawn, the rain had slowed to a drizzle, the streets slick with silver light and the smell of wet earth. I stood on the steps of the safe house, shoulders aching, clothes still damp, my fingers clutching the certificate that had rewritten my destiny. For hours, I had known only fear, flight, and the pounding of my own heart. But now, as sunlight pierced the clouds, I felt the first fragile taste of peace. Behind me, he stepped outside, his face weary but softened by relief. For the first time, I saw not the hunted fugitive or the magnate who had tested me, but the boy I once gave bread to, the boy who had grown into a man who carried both empire and scars. Our eyes met, and though no words passed between us, we both knew. The storm had bound us, but the dawn had remade us. A police car rolled into the courtyard, its red-blue lights muted in the pale sunlight. 2 officers stepped out, raincoats glistening. My chest tightened as they approached, their gazes sharp, but their steps cautious. One stopped before me, clipboard in hand. "Miss Reyes?" I swallowed and nodded. He gestured to the folder in my hands. "We've been informed you possess documentation of ownership. May we verify?" With trembling fingers, I passed the certificate forward. He unfolded it with care, scanning the signatures, seals, and embossed crest. For an endless moment, silence hung heavy in the mist. Then his partner leaned over, her brow furrowed. Finally, she smiled. "It's valid," she said softly. "Registered yesterday. Full ownership rights transferred. Congratulations, Ms. Reyes." The words struck like lightning, not with fear, but with wonder. I staggered back, covering my mouth as tears welled in my eyes. It was real. After a lifetime of struggle, after nights spent scrubbing floors and counting pennies, I was free. More than free. I was powerful. The officers offered polite nods, promising support and discretion before returning to their car. I stood frozen, the certificate once a burden of danger now transformed into a key to possibility. My mother's face flashed in my mind, her weary smile, her labored breath. At last, I could give her the care she deserved. Later that morning, I sat in a quiet office, papers spread across a polished desk. A financial advisor explained dividends, trusts, and portfolios. His words washed over me in strange waves, foreign yet intoxicating. Each signature I penned felt like rewriting history, not just mine, but my family's. With every stroke, I buried the girl who once counted coins in the dim light of unpaid bills. When I asked about my mother's treatments, the advisor's eyes softened. "You can cover every cost," he assured me. "She'll have the best care money can buy, and you'll still have more than enough to secure your future." I pressed my hand against the glass window, watching the city bustle below. None of them knew that in this room sat a woman reborn, a woman whose fate had pivoted on a single knock at midnight. By evening, I returned home. My little house, battered by storms, looked unchanged, yet everything had shifted. My mother stood at the door, her eyes swollen with worry. When she saw me, relief poured from her in waves. "You're safe," she whispered, pulling me into her arms. Then her gaze dropped to the certificate in my hands. When recognition dawned, tears spilled freely down her cheeks. "Is it true?" I nodded, voice trembling. "It's over, Mama. We're free." We clung together, laughter and sobs tangled, as if the paper itself had lifted centuries of weight from our shoulders. For the first time in years, hope didn't feel like a cruel dream. It felt like air in my lungs. That night, long after my mother had drifted into peaceful sleep, I sat at my desk. A single lamp cast a golden glow across the certificate, its crest gleaming like a promise. I traced its folds, remembering every step that had brought me here. The boy on the bench, the storm, the hunters, the betrayals, the truths whispered in the dark. I realized then that the real gift wasn't the money. It was the reminder that kindness matters, that even in a world fractured by greed and cruelty, one small act could ripple outward until it remade lives. His tests, his doubts, his empire, they were all born from that single sandwich I'd given long ago. And now, the torch was mine to carry. I vowed silently but fiercely that I would not let this fortune rot in silence or selfishness. I would honor the debt of kindness, expanding its circle until no storm could silence it. My mother's care would be the first step. But beyond that, there would be others. Children, families, strangers shivering on park benches. The storm had ended, but storms will always come. And now, I had the power to shelter others. I looked out the window, the horizon breaking with pale light. Tomorrow waited, vast and uncertain. Yet for the first time in years, I didn't fear it. I welcomed it. As I turn the paper over, a hidden clause catches my eye, and it changes everything again. I freeze, heart pounding at the words stamped in fine print. Could this fortune carry another storm within its lines? Outside, the wind stirs, whispering of secrets yet revealed. Tomorrow's dawn may hold salvation, or another test of trust. If this whirlwind journey had you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a twist. Then drop a comment below with your favorite moment and what you think comes next. Share this video with anyone who craves a heart-pounding tale and join our community on social media. Links in the description for exclusive behind-the-scenes peeks and pulls.